Hey, what is up, YouTube? What is up, Christianology fam? We're gonna be reacting to a show, No Fault Divorce Be Illegal, on the Whatever Podcast. Let's get to it.
Like what you guys do. I watch it because I like to hear different
Stop it, go
opinions.
on.
No, I
Come
like
on.
to
We're not that
listen to
handsome.
different opinions and stuff, but I have no problem with you getting on and trying to advocate for like getting rid of things like no fault divorce. Now, if you guys pass the law, like I think you should have the complete right to do that, convince people, but passing the law and is a very different thing.
Well, you'd have to pass a law if you're talking about a law, right? You're talking about,
yeah,
right?
but I think it's much different to try to get people to not get divorced or advocate for that position.
Well, look, I think everybody, unless you're the most hardened radical feminist maniac, you don't like divorce, right? You're not saying we want more divorce.
But I
are
think
you?
people should have the freedom to
Right,
get
so
divorced.
you're merely talking about the right. And so I guess my question then is, put aside legal divorce for cause. What is gained by no fault divorce? What's the good of that?
Oh, there's a bunch of good when it comes to no fault divorce. Previously, when we had fault divorce, people would literally have to like lie or commit vices in order to be able to get divorced. So whether it was like,
Why don't they just not get divorced though if there's no fault?
the problem is if they decide to like not get divorced, usually that leads to like higher rates of unhappiness. It leads to people having like more tension within their marriage. There is
Does it?
tension.
I don't know. I'm not convinced of that.
Well, yeah,
Again, because I think happiness has declined for everybody, and especially for women over the time that we've had these
Yeah,
laws.
but we can look at people who reportedly stay in marriages where they're unhappy and like the long-term effects of that, even like psychologically, health-wise. We can look at abusive relationships, situationships where the woman feels like she can't leave even in an era of
that would
no-fault
be
divorce.
that would be fault, right? That's not no fault divorce.
Yeah,
That's like my husband punched me in the face.
The problem with fault divorce, right, is that you're already instituting like a burden of proof onto like these abuse victims that would basically prolong the process of them getting away from their abusive partner, right?
Even
now
you could separate and you could move out, the same night.
So basically, you're saying that you're okay with advocating for a system where they're basically not married in all the ways that matter, but just not legally.
I don't know what matters.
Well, they're not living
We're-
together.
we're-
They're not being intimate together. Their children are in basically separate homes because you're saying the woman can leave,
No,
but she
I'm
cannot
opposed
divorce.
to divorce, but we're speaking specifically now about no fault divorce, because we're probably not going to agree on divorce broadly, but we might at least agree that no fault divorce is very, very bad. Because you're saying, well, if one is not able to have a no fault divorce, then they might have to stick with that spouse that they don't like that much, or the spouse got kind of fat and I don't like him anymore, whatever. But first of all, it's definitely better for the kids, in as much as the studies are reliable on this. Kids who grow up in a home of a mother and a father bound together in marriage do better across every single criterion. But furthermore,
Shut up.
you're neglecting the negative aspects of divorce.
I know you wanted
when
to say
people
that.
do
I
get
said it
divorced,
first.
and then if they have kids, and God forbid they get divorced, then if you introduce a stepfather into that relationship,
Yeah.
the odds that those kids are abused or sexually assaulted go through the roof. The odds that and actually, at a more basic level, because we could rattle off the statistics all day, at the basic level, we recognize that the marriage is the fundamental political unit. The liberals say the individual is the fundamental political unit, but I think that's bunk. I think it's the family, because political means multiple people,
But just to go on the data really quick, I mean,
Yep.
they're staying in a household with conflict is worse than
But
for
they'll
children
have the
for-
conflict in divorce. I mean, this is
No,
divorce
but
is in a way
no.
not
no.
possible.
If
Every
the house,
single
yeah,
day.
it's better for yes, you're right. But also when you factor in education and socioeconomic status, a lot of that dissipates. So what's happening usually is that poor people are more likely. So it's all jumbled up.
Poor,
but also
poor people are less likely to get married in the first place and more
that's
likely
true.
to have
That's
kids
true.
out of wedlock.
But being a child in a home with conflict between the parents is worse than having.
Right, but then why isn't the answer resolve the conflict?
Because
rather
people
than-
can't. We're human beings. You're the one who's talking about human nature.
Yeah, but
human
I think-
nature. We're clearly not successful at staying with one person forever.
We
and
have
not
been
having-
at a much higher rates in the recent past. So, unless we're suggesting that no one can progress, that no one can improve their behavior, then I think we can get better at that. And I think part of the reason why divorce rates spiked is because the law encouraged divorce rates to spike. And because, to give the red pill guys their due, because family courts have been horribly unjust to men.
Right.
And because
Terrible.
we have a liberal idol in our society of radical individualism that says, who cares what happens to my
Wait,
spouse
when
or my
in recent
kids?
history were we really good as a human species on lifelong, healthy bonds? Like serial monogamy
In the
seems to
United
be what we're
States?
good. I don't. But this thing,
I
you
don't
don't know just because of someone staying together. Like there's a lot of people who had parents that stayed together that are all sorts of messed up because the parents fought. There was alcoholism in the house. There's all types of things.
they're all bad things
Just
that
people
can
staying
happen.
together isn't what
good
you
metric.
isn't a good metric for childhood well-being.
Well, it's a good predictor of outcomes, but I totally grant to you that, there are bad marriages. I just think if the
Well,
law
that's
is
impressed
then going
up.
to intervene, the way the law has intervened is by dissolving the marriages and creating all sorts of incentives to get divorced and to not get married in the first place. But if the law is going to intervene because of all these problems, why wouldn't the law intervene to make marriage more sustainable,
Well,
to
the law isn't really
encourage marriage?
The law really isn't intervening per se. People are choosing whether they want to apply this law to their life or not. So people
No,
are
the
choosing that they
legend-
want to get divorced or choosing if they want to work things out. The difference is that now you have a choice on whether you think the person you're with is actually somebody you can continue having a sustainable relationship with.
But to
and
quote-
if the answer is no, then
To
divorce.
quote Simone de Beauvoir, that famous feminist, if you give people a brand new choice, if you give people a preferable choice, given their social circumstances, they might just take it.
And women fare off this idea that women are like, to fight back on the red pill, that women are just incentivized to divorce. Women fare off far worse financially after divorce. They're way
Yeah,
more
it's
likely
terrible.
to seek
Yeah.
government assistance, be in poverty. They're
Totally.
less likely to repartner.
You're making
So
my
this
case
idea
for
that
me. I
women are
agree.
just running to the
Because they don't have the man to make money anymore. Now they have to do everything. Women do not like to work freaking 50 hours, 60 hours a week just to make a living. That's why they are off financially after a divorce. That's the only reason. The man is not there taking up 90% of the income.
divorce court to get money is just not true.
Well, no, they are divorcing at much higher rates. That's undeniable. And
Yeah.
I'm totally with you. Divorce is horrible for women. So sometimes feminists make the argument that I think perhaps we were getting to a little earlier, the argument that you just contradicted, which is, oh, divorce is so good for women. It's a wonderful choice. They really need to have this choice. It makes their lives better. No, it doesn't. Basically, all the time, it makes their lives much worse, to say nothing of the ways that it harms their children.
Well,
and harms
no.
society
What
because
it's,
it's the fundamental political unit.
what it's basically saying is that if a person is willing to take all these worst outcomes, like economically, socially, whatever, imagine how bad that relationship must have been.
Or imagine
that
how
a woman
diluted-
decided, like, hey, you know what? Instead of like trying to continue this, it is so toxic and so unhealthy that this is a better alternative.
Or they have been diluted by a lot of propaganda over the years,
Look,
which is
you
that
may be,
divorce
you
is
seem
good.
very sane. I'm sure you and
Stop it.
your wife have really great ways of communicating and resolving your conflicts. Do you know how crazy people are? Like,
They can be. They can be a
Yeah,
little
like
crazy.
to say that that's going to work for everybody and everybody should just stay in this when people are not emotionally even mature enough.
Look, I certainly style myself Prince Charming, so I'm glad to hear that we all agree. But you're right. Maybe people engage in more vicious and harmful behaviors. So I guess my question is, if we agree that certain cultural practices can make people behave better, and certain cultural practices can make people behave worse, shouldn't we be doing everything we can to make people
everybody
behave
good, right?
better? And that's what we did in the classical political arrangement of society, right? You know, the basic point of politics is do good and avoid evil. Then, under liberalism, you had a new point of society. The new point of society was to just expand individual autonomy maximally, on the, I think, false supposition that that would make people happier. And we've had a couple hundred years now, and we've seen how it's played out, and it hasn't played out very well at all. So why don't we go back to the one that worked for all of human
So
history?
one, do you think that's possible or going to happen? And two, would you
Yeah.
then be in favor, because education, female education, seems to be a big predictor of, one, we're the only ones whose marriage rates are not falling, they're going up, and we're less likely to get divorced. So do you then, would you advise women, instead of getting married really young and living this traditional lifestyle, to maybe go get
No,
educated
the
first?
best predictor of women staying married and flourishing and having lots of kids and being happy and not even trying to get divorced, it's not education, though education is some predictor of that. It's
Big one.
It's religion.
Yeah, you're true, but you can't make people. We're just becoming less religious as a society. This thing you guys have, where let's turn the clock back. Let's turn the clock
I
back.
don't want
let's
to turn any clocks back. I just want to turn our heads back
You
to reason.
can't make
and reason
people
is founded
believe
in
in
logic,
something.
who is God.
Yeah, exactly. But the logic and the reason and the age of information, a lot of people now have access to it, and they're going, actually, this kind of seems like bullshit, and they can't. You can't make.
No, I don't think that's why people
Well-
have become irreligious. I don't think it's because they've all gotten much better educated and read a lot more books. and
They
gotten
read
smarter.
Christopher Hitchens. I agree with you.
No, yeah, I think
mean,
they like heard a Christopher Hitchens video once, and
But
they, you know,
it's
which is suitable for a
undeniable that
12-year-old.
more and more people are identifying as non-religious, that this is just the trend that it's going in. And
Yes
I don't
and
know
no,
how
yes and
much,
no.
as great as the Daily Wire is, how much you guys are going to be able to reverse that. So maybe we should look at how we can move forward with the society we have, instead of trying to turn the clock back in a way that
But it's
we
not a
can't.
clock. It's not a clock. We're not going. I'm not making a time machine. I'm just saying that there's truth and there's falsehood, and we are embracing a lot of falsehood in society, and that's leading to a lot of ugliness and a lot of depravity. And if we want less of all that stuff, and we want more like good, true, and beautiful things, maybe we should use our reason to recognize really basic things like God exists. I'm not telling you you've got to come to traditional Latin Mass tomorrow. You could wait until Sunday. But, at the very least, we should recognize, hey guys, some things are better than others, right? The minute you grant that some things are better than others, ultimately you have to grant that there is.
Hey man, shout out to Michael Knowles, man. Always spitting facts. Thank y'all for watching. Hopefully I enjoyed. Bye.